You're calling from a 954 area code. Who are you? Where are you calling from?
Hey, fellas, it's Michael from Miami. How are you?
What's going on, Michael? How are you? Long time no talk.
We haven't talked to you. Yeah, I know. I haven't called you guys because Sammy's so usually running the controls. It's funny. I was laughing at the Morning Joe stuff because how many years, this even predates you guys coming on the show, I'd call Sam up and just express total amazement that this goofball was allowed to become somehow the political bellwether and the barometer of Washington politics. And it's just gotten worse and worse. And now he's considered go-to TV for a lot of those insider people, which I know rankles the hell out of people who do honest reporting. But
it's embarrassing.
You talk about engaging in trivia. I mean, that dope Mike Allen, he continues to have a platform and continues to show and set the agenda somehow. And that guy indulges in nothing but gossip. Right?
He's literally a gossip columnist. That's literally what he is. Yeah. A gossip columnist for fucking boring, weird politicians.
Somehow that just gets people's adrenaline going, and they watch that show and they talk about it, and they just will not. I mean, it's really just ordinately depressing. But
I agree.
It is what it is. But anyway, the other thing I wanted to bring your attention was it's funny. You guys are obviously much younger than I am, and I'm curious because I believe Matt, the other Matt there, is a bit of a historian. You're the one who went to the Nixon tapes, right? You went all through the archives. Am I right, Matt?
I've listened to a lot of them, yeah.
Okay, then you might have a little bit of historical perspective since I'm older than you guys, and I didn't cover it, but I was certainly around when it was going on, and I remember the coverage very well. But based on what we have, knowing what's going on today, you do realize that if there were the same social media environment back in 1973-74, Nixon would have never resigned. That's a truism. I mean, you guys
understand that. That seems totally obvious to me.
Well, they even say if he had a Fox News.
Didn't somebody say to Tucker? Didn't somebody said to Sean Hannity on his show that if he was around during Nixon wouldn't have resigned? I think somebody actually said that to him. Yeah, I think that's totally clear.
Woodward may have said that.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me. If there was if there was the link, and also I think the nature of the Republican Party, but definitely in today's social media environment, no, Nixon would not have resigned. No.
No, the Goldwaters and the Scotts and the John Rhodes and those guys. And I know I'm throwing names out that you guys, well, except for Goldwater, may not even know. But anyway, the point is, it was a different type of Republican Party, and it wasn't just Fox News. I mean, it's the entire environment that allows in this alternative universe to coexist. I know you guys are science fiction fans. The first Star Trek had a great episode called Mirror Mirror, where they basically end up in a parallel dimension. That's kind of like where we are right now. We are in a parallel dimension where you and I can look at something and objectively say, no, this is not correct. Well, for instance, I know you haven't talked about this, so I'm surprised that you're going to bring it on, the national movement to allow interstate transportation of firearms without question.
Right.
I mean, I live in South Florida, okay? So obviously we're yahoos run the state in North Florida and Central Florida. But if you allow people from my state to travel unfettered up and down Interstate 95, when guys like ATF are going out of business because they're not going to be able to stop the interstate transport of guns because it will no longer be illegal.
Right.
You'll be allowed as long as you have a permit, of course. But I'm just saying, this is the kind of thing
not
that is
too hard to acquire.
It's frightening. I don't know if you guys have done anything on it, but it needs to be.
I'm sure we will, and probably if we don't, I would imagine I don't know who's on Friday, but it'll get covered, no doubt.
I mean, it's depressing to think about that. That's where
look. I mean, man, it's a tsunami. I mean, like I feel like for me, I do a little bit more on my show, actually, quite a bit more. But like I do a lot of global stuff. There's a ton of things obviously happening in the world. There's a mass increases in civilian casualties. There's leaders that parallel Trump, that are going through their own sort of machinations. There's these kind of macro trends that I'm looking at. At some level, it's like, especially I think for this show, it's like you're going day in and day out, and you kind of just got to keep hitting the pavement on, healthcare, tax giveaway, SNAP, and then just all of the kind of endless nonsense, both because some of it is important and then the rest of it is like the pressure valve where we get to laugh a little bit.
I'm curious about your tsunami reference because it is like that. Yeah. He throws so much crap out there and so much nonsensical shit that people just cannot understand. and have never seen before, so that the stuff that you allude to, the fact that things are going on in other parts of the world that are absolutely important that need to be talked about, it gets glossed over. But here's the argument I always hear from my friends who still work in the mainstream press. I hate to use that term, but they work in traditional media.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want us to do? If the President of the United States, Michael, Matt, or whoever else is out there, makes a statement that is outrageous, by necessity, you realize you have to cover it.
Yep.
You can't ignore it.
Yep.
You have to. So where does it? I mean, there's only so much oxygen in the room, right?
Well, I think that there's still a lot more room and attention that could be paid into, like, if you were doing serious, smart, mainstream reporting, or good investigative or long-form discussions. Like, there was that piece. I had this guy on the Majority Report a couple months ago, but he wrote an editorial. David Cleon. He wrote a piece for the New York Times editorial page where he said this is why Bernie supporters should care about the Russia stuff. And what he did that was smart is he said, look, this isn't some big Baroque crazy conspiracy like all these kind of nutty resistance types are overselling on, but there is almost definitely weird financial relationships here and weird interactions, and this fits into a bigger pattern of, say, like the Paradise Papers and the Panama Papers and all of the revelations that we have about global tax shelters and money laundering, and where politicians and business people and organized crime figures and celebrities are hiding and washing money. That could be a whole way of talking about and contextualizing Trump. I think some of the outrageous stuff he says, to be honest with you, I think it should be ignored even by mainstream people, because the truth of the matter, even by mainstream media, because it's like, look, at a certain point, it's like, that unless it's like, something that you do have to take seriously, like threatening to wipe North Korea off the planet or something, right? It's like, okay, right, this guy insulted somebody on Twitter. Big deal. That's what he does. If you're still at the phase where we're pretending that this is shocking, or you don't know who he is, or he would grow into the presidency, all these other laughable notions, of course not.
It's
and the tsunami, as far as I'm concerned, is not just him. It's also, it's all of the Republicans, way too many of the Democrats, and really kind of like the bigger end game here that this clown is the face of.
Well, look at this, though. Look at the web stuff that's going on recently about Porter, okay?
Yeah.
Now, on the face of it, it literally has chewed up 20 out of every 22 minutes of every newscast. But the problem is the fact that you have people sitting next to the president who have unfettered access to classified information without having a clearance to do so is a major effing story.
Right.
And I agree they overkill it, but you're not going to tell me you don't cover that thing, right?
No, I think that and also it matters that the chief of staff is
screaming at her about emails, for Christ's sake. You have got to hold up that hypocrisy and make people understand this. Look, when I was in television, this is what you did. You just told people this is why you care. You're sitting at your home. You're a 30-something-year-old millennial. Your colleagues are 20-somethings. This is why you should care. The money laundering thing, you're on the money about.
Right.
I think you're dead on the money. But the other stuff about national security, damn, dude, that's important. You got to talk about that. Right?
No, I agree. And of course, I think that the fucking, being a wife beater is important, and I think that the chief of staff almost certainly knowing is a no-brainer. That's a no-brainer. I mean, that stuff. I guess No, I guess the stuff that I was getting to, though, that really is at this point, like, if I think that, like, Trump's insults are the best part of him, and I find them entertaining. But I am not, like, the notion that we're going to still find, like, the part of him that's just, like, a disgusting tabloid, like, blowhard insult artist. No. That just needs to either be ignored or played for entertainment, period.
Right. But the problem is it's not going to be, and they're inextricably linked. You cannot divorce yourself at times, because when he says things that are insensitive to women, I guess Jamie's not there today. But
no, that's true. That's true.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing with you. Yeah, that's true.
You can't. It's like literally slicing away the membrane from the cell. You can't do it because, he says something that's stupid about, I believe both sides, and everybody can see through what's going on. Everybody with a third-grade education.
Right.
I mean, I will say this. Most of the time, in these situations, you can really boil it down to the most basic of instincts. Are you on my team or on their team?
Right.
If you're on my team, I'll do everything I can to cover your ass. If you're on their team, F you. We don't care. This is really what it comes down. That's all the analysis you need. Yeah. I know you guys hate to hear that because it's a ridiculous oversimplification, but when it comes
I think it's
him,
true.
His actions.
I agree.
That's it.
I agree.
Right? Am I wrong, guys?
No, I don't think you're wrong at all. I think you're totally on the money. Can I ask you a real quick question before you go?
Shoot.
Is Bill Nelson in trouble?
No, it's a 50-50. It's going to come down to turnout.
Okay.
Now, Scott runs. If people don't know by now, my state is unbelievably stupid and unbelievably corrupt on many respects, or many aspects. However, the problem with Scott winning the last 2 elections was that the Democrats ran, as usual, miserable campaigns with incredibly flawed candidates.
That's their way.
If you want, Matt, go back and look in the archives and go find out about a woman named Nan Rich, who was actually the progressive candidate who should have been the Democratic nominee, but of course didn't get the support of the national DLCC people because they thought she was too progressive and too liberal and would never carry the yahoos up north.
Blah, blah,
so they nominated Charlie Crist, who was a one-time Republican governor, which of course inspired nobody in the base to come out and do anything, and they lost.
And kind of a guy that's a little. I mean, he doesn't come off as trustworthy. Is the most diplomatic way I could put it.
I actually met him at a fundraiser because I sat with him, and I represent injured workers in my practice, in addition to injured people in general. But he had been to the forefront of a disgusting workers' compensation law in the state, where basically injured workers had their rights ripped away from them. He signed the legislation back in 2010 when he was a governor.
Right. So why the fuck Democrats are so unbelievable?
Dude, they had the political instincts of a mollusk. I swear to God they do.
Right.
And you can start with the national people and work it straight through. They are literally just sheep walking off the cliff half the time, and they don't understand. They have zero instinct. I know we disagree about Bill Clinton on a number of issues, but you cannot tell me that guy didn't have the political instincts of a genius when he came to figure out where he needed to be.
Well, you know the story I always tell, and I am a very, very big critic of Bill Clinton. But the story I always tell,
Sam ripped me one day.
Yeah, no, I remember. But the story that I tell, though, where I concede some of your point, is there's an anecdote in Shattered, which is a fucking. I mean, I guess I'm enough of a Bernie-crat to enjoy parts of it, but because of how this all ended up, it literally is like a stomach-churning read. And one among many parts of that book that is just enraging, or at the very least eye-rolling, is you have all of these nerds with these, the algorithm solution for everything with this non-charismatic candidate. Bill Clinton goes to Robbie Mook. Now, Robbie Mook is like, I don't know, he's like 35, 36 years. I mean, he's not, like, he's a young, he's done some campaigns, he's accomplished a few things, but he is not, he's a very arrogant, very young guy. And Bill Clinton comes up to him and is basically like, I don't know, I'm a little concerned because of Brexit and blah, blah, and gives him kind of like the feeling of the pulse of the land. And Mook is basically like, yeah, the numbers look good. Like as if, like,
you know who else did that?
Get the
John
fuck
Kerry.
out. To a two-term president like Bill Clinton. I mean, you know what I think of him. If Bill Clinton came up to me and he said, I got a couple of thoughts about your Patreon page, I wouldn't be like, yeah, I think the analytics are fine. I mean, are you kidding me?